So this project was started off, you and Quentin, right?
Yeah, so... well, we kind of started in 2009, like on accident. We played a few shows and had done some recordings under the name The Fuck Disco.
I just wanted to bring that up. I'm like, under the fuck disco?
And we were really just... at that point, we gave like so little fucks. Like we were on some wild tip.
And that was your first project post Antarctica.
Yeah, it was like post Antarctica that was still me and Quentin being the core members, and it was all improvisational. We had a couple shows booked, and ended up just deciding to roll out and perform as the Fuck Disco, and didn't really think much. I mean, we dropped off from that. I mean, we gave so little fucks that we ended up not even really showing up to most of the shows that we had booked after we played the first two, and gave up for a long time on that. We ended up both getting into me and Quentin both got into a couple other bands that were like more noise oriented.
You started doing TEBOTJF, which we've also featured on.
Yeah.
Which we've also featured on one of our compilations.
So yeah, like around we started kind of getting back into like the grime scene around like 2012, and then.
And the spelling of that is TEBOTJF, right?
Yeah, which originally stood for the Experimental Boys of the Jetpack Frontier. We don't ever really talk about that anymore.
No, we don't talk about that acronym.
Yeah. But yeah, so we got back in it with TEBOTJF, and that's kind of where some of our homies that we'd been just jamming with or collaborating with throughout the years joined in with us. At that point, the drummer for TEBOTJF was Philip Dekat, who has a bunch of other projects up in that area, This Week's Leader, and he was also in a band with me and Quentin prior to that. And our homie Nick Schultz, who in TEBOTJF played guitar.
I was about to bring that up, actually. So in regards to the other members, you also have Philip Dekat, who is a singer-songwriter from, what is this project called? This Week's Leader, which you also play bass in.
Yeah.
Quade is very busy. And then you brought in, as you were saying, Nick Schultz, who is a more or less, he's kind of a known noise artist, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got like he's put out a lot of stuff. Like he's been releasing noise since like 2009.
Yeah, so you brought in Phil to do vocals, and you brought in Schultz to do noise and bass and vocals.
Yeah. And
electronics, as it were. Which, again, I think really adds to the whole unorthodox style of music that you play.
At the end of TEBOTJF, kind of trying to pull like a band together again, where it wasn't just me screaming over the band with no mic, or we're gonna try and get a vocalist together. So we got
the Fuck Disco. Quentin literally put the guitar on his lap and strummed it with like. So I mean, yeah, it's coming a long ways from there. So
we getting the band back together more or less. We got Quentin on vocals and kind of started rehearsing with that lineup, which was Phil on drums, me on guitar, Nick Schultz on guitar, and then Quentin doing vocals. So it lasted for a good few months where we took the practices pretty seriously, but at the same time me and Quentin had been experimenting a lot with pretty much the exact same formula as the Fuck Disco, using the name Worshipping, even though we never released anything or really played any shows or anything. That's just kind of what we were going under at that period, and we ended up recording a demo and changing the name to Carbonate Glass, which was kind of a name that we'd had for a long time, that we originally wanted to use if we ever were going to change the name of Antarctica, which never happened. But.
And that was just you and Quentin on those recordings?
Yeah, so it's just me and Quentin both just taking care of the vocals and just going to town guitar and drums. And then we started getting more like, I don't want to say like self-conscious about our vocals, but we started like doubting whether we would want to do vocals and the instruments live. So we started talking to the guys from TEBOTJF about wanting to collaborate more, and they were just super in, and they were like they were super big supporters of us originally.
So with the addition of Phil and Schultz handling vocals, that sort of allowed you to focus more on your instruments, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially in a potentially live setting.
Yeah, so everything's changed since then. Like, everything's just gotten heavier. We've just been focusing more on tone and just how to build like a real body of sound out of what we're doing, as opposed, because the riffs are real wacky and unorthodox. Quentin's playing is pretty unique.
I'm glad that you bring that up. Let's talk about Quentin for a second. So again, he was originally the vocalist of Antarctica, but he has no previous musical or instrument training prior to CMOD. So this creates a very, again, unorthodox approach to his playing. Again, no training. He uses a very interesting tuning as well. Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we could talk about it, but I couldn't lay it out for you what the notes are right now.
Describe what the tuning would be.
But essentially, by barring, it's creating a minor second, is it? Or
well, he's got. I mean, okay, so if we're gonna dig deep, just lay Quentin's whole setup out here. He's got the two lowest strings just as low as you could get them. You know, there is a real tune.
Is there a pitch?
Yeah, there's a tune. Like, it's like tuned to something like every time that we go into play, but yeah, the low notes are something like pretty similar to like, you know, like a drop D setup, kind of like a bar chord, and then as you move on, it some of the notes, or at least two of them, are tuned with
Are they a half step apart?
It's just a half step apart, so you can, in the same way that you would, you know, fish stick finger a drop D chord, you could, you know, throw down some of those real big scrunky chords with a little more ease. So he has like a lot more control over the pitches and the notes that he's throwing down in a real rhythmic setting, you know, or like a more rhythmic execution than if he was going at it with,
it's more like, percussive, I think, is what you're getting at.
Good call. Yeah, he really goes at shit like rhythmically as opposed to melodically.
Right.
And yeah, that's a big part of like how we started to get things going. And like you mentioned earlier, a lot of the noise and the more discordant elements that come from Nick bringing the electronics in really inspired us to amp up the distortion on the guitar and make the guitar a little bit less traditional, you know, like make the riffs more along the lines of you know, like a synthesizer or something like that.
Does Nick run samples
No,
at all?
he doesn't run no samples.
Because in your videos, you guys have quite a bit of a wrestling influence so far. What I've seen, like it wasn't the last Car Made of Glass video, basically.
Yeah, I mean,
some
the albums are
WWF
very
going on?
sample heavy for sure.
Yeah.
Every
Oh,
song.
yeah,
So I mean,
yeah.
like, do you guys play these samples live at all, or not really?
Well, we haven't really.
You
played
have to
live.
play the samples live.
No, yeah. Well, so I mean, it's kind of hard to explain. We've got a lot.
How are they gonna know what song comes next?
Thank you, Christian.
So we're working. The truth. No, I mean, we wouldn't play a song without the sample. We wouldn't go that far.
Yeah.
But no, we the live thing is like a whole nother topic, because we're still kind of trying to figure out how we want to bring this to a live setting, because we've done a few like small shows, or we've done some like really intimate performances, but we really haven't even got to the point where we're sure how we're going to bring this like to another town, you know, or how we're going to go about like performing. Like,
That's actually a conversation Christian and I have a lot with one-piece and two-piece bands.
How are they gonna perform this live?
Yeah, how are you guys gonna do it? Because like most of the time, it's like the most ripping of bands too. You're like, God damn, that was great, and then you look up, you're like, oh, what the fuck, you know, that kind of thing. So it hurts a little bit, you know.
Yeah, no, and so we've been thinking a lot about like how to present it live, and
So Car Made of Glass has not actually played a show yet, right?
not by what we would consider, but no, not a real ass show. We haven't been on a flyer, you know. We're not running like that. But we've just been like about a year ago, we were really working on our first full length album of stuff after like the Rush Hour split and after our first demo.
I actually wanted to talk about that. So as much as Car Made of Glass is a grindcore band, you're also very noise oriented. And you're split with Spectre's track Bloody Trails, and your full-length album, which you're just mentioning, Flooring Graffiti, are almost entirely noise, save for the one track on the latter. Do you want to talk about the recording process for those albums and the materials that you utilize?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, the album that I was referring to ended up just getting shelved.
Oh,
like,
okay.
It was of material that was like more along our like death grind material. So it was like that's kind of how Phil and Nick originally got involved. They were saying, hey, we'll take over the vocals on this project, because it was just kind of this like daunting like 15 or like 16 song album. And so from there we were just kind of getting together to like experiment or just like work with vocals and stuff. And when Nick would bring over his pedals, or we would start messing around with like effects for the vocals or something, we would just kind of get like lost in like saying like, man, like we want to try this, or we want to do these other ideas. And we had like a lot between the four of us. We had like a lot of ideas for how we could just completely change the band. How we could just say like, fuck, this is what we're gonna add to Carmated Glass now, and this is like what we could be, or this is like how we could take it. So a lot of the ideas that ended up becoming like the Spectres track, Bloody Trails Split, and Foreign Graffiti were things that we could have just, I felt like we could have ran with any one of those ideas and just kind of like said, okay, well, this is CMOG now. But instead we're just kind of like, okay, well, let's just keep doing like what we've been doing with the grind stuff, and on top of that just kind of start throwing in these different
noise elements.
Yeah, because a lot of the stuff, like, I mean, upon first listen, it's like really different from the early Carmated Glass stuff, but like as we're moving along now, I think like some of the more recent stuff that's like unreleased, like we're working on like a lot of projects now, like that's like what we do. We've just been working on like, we'll juggle like a couple splits at once, and like right now we have like another full-length album that's unreleased. Like,
and isn't Potion also sitting on another full length as well?
Potion is also sitting on, like I mentioned earlier, like he has like an EP, and he said he's.
Is your drumming also featured on those albums as well, or?
I'm featured on at least one more project that is done, and then there's
under the moniker of Potion.
Yes, and then but this year there should be a bunch of stuff. We're definitely, we've been getting together more, trying to work out some more material, and he even told me recently that you should be able to expect at least 2 releases before summertime, or so a lot of stuff's popping off with Carmen.
Yeah, you've been really busy.
Yeah, definitely. But
along your solo project as well too. Dropped Call.
Yeah, I just put out an album. I can't remember if it was last year.
So in essence, the members of Carmated Glass really dabble in all different kinds of music, variety of projects. They're all very prolific. Quade is also a noise artist unto himself. So there's 2 artists involved in involved in Carmated Glass here.
And Phil is Spectre's track Bloody Trails.
Oh, I had no fucking idea. Make that 3.
So yeah, so he has a lot of other solo projects too. So within like the 4 of us, we work on like a lot of different ideas, but more or less like in the past year we decided like, okay, like we can keep doing all these other solo projects on the side, and we can keep, nothing's going to stop us from doing that. But if we like join forces and decide like, okay, like let's, because like more recently a lot of the stuff is literally written, like for Foreign Graffiti and more the stuff that we've recorded recently that hasn't come out, it's all, it's everyone's ideas kind of put together to create something like live in the studio.
I know. I can see you guys actually performing the grindcore with the noise live. I think that would really be quite a performance to
with
behold.
the inserts.
Yeah, like
With the inserts, I feel like this would make Full of Hell blush. It's very similar to Full of Hell. Again, if you like any sort of super dirty noise grind, Carmated Glass is gonna please you. It's unhinged. I think that describes it perfectly. So one of the most fascinating elements of this band for me is the lyrics and the song titles, which are so profoundly haunting, sinister, and even prophetic at times. And I would really like to talk about the source material. Can you tell us a bit about that?
the journals.
Yeah, the journals.
Get into the journals.
Yeah.
So there's kind of this whole world that me and Quentin entered a few years ago, back in like 2009, where we kind of came in possession of this person's journals and some pretty bizarre writings, and we ended up, obsessing over them for various reasons. And one of the main reasons that we were drawn to it, beyond just the sheer luck that we ended up, with it in our possession, was that this person kind of had this this fixation with the number 17, which in turn is also, they had an obsession with the 17th letter of the alphabet, which is Q, which is the first letter of both of our names. So it kind of was
Jesus fucking Christ, Quade.
But I mean, it gets really deep though. Like, I mean, like on the surface.
This is why I wanted to talk about this.
This is like the surface level of it. This
is like Humboldt's lore.
I mean, we ended up finding kind of who we know who he is now and stuff. But
that wasn't until years after the fact, though.
Yeah, years after the fact that we kind of like, just
Exactly,
discussed like, well,
was.
is this person dead or alive? Like, how do this, like, should, what do we do with this art? Which is what we looked at it as. It was just the first page really laid it out that it was their intent behind leaving it there was to be found and read. You know, I mean, the front page, like, clearly stated that. And so what do you do with it? I mean, I don't know. Like, we were in a bunch of bands together with really no idea of how to kind of apply this.
Where'd you find this shit?
At the bottom of Tompkins Hill Road, which is
just like at the bottom of
at the bottom of beep, where my folks live. But,
so just like backwoods, just like at the bottom of the road.
So essentially, these are the ramblings of a madman
Well-
that they came upon. They came upon the ramblings of a madman, and they've appropriated it for lyrical content quite brilliantly.
Well, I mean,
And for song titles too. I mean, you've got
okay.
the business of breaking idols, an
His-
existence predicated upon manufactured necessity. I'm not sure if incorporating human biases into a
No.
probabilistic model of retweeting
No.
is him. That sounds more like you, but
like a lot. Like,
so wonderfully verbose, by the way.
his what he left behind wasn't necessarily like his intent wasn't to leave behind any sort of like poems or like art pieces or lyrics or anything, but like what we took from it was that there was this, you know, there was some like cohesive aspect to it that we related to, or that we found like really intriguing, and that like we could like that we felt was like worthy of, you know, turning into the lyrics or the drive to this band. So when we first started, we were just both like, oh shit, you know. When we first started doing Carmine de Glass, we weren't really too worried about lyrics. You know, we had the music was the main focus, but then we started digging back into the journals and figuring what we really were inspired by out of it originally, and from that comes the lyrics for the first Carmine de Glass demo, the Rush Hour 4 split, and I mean, we actually have a couple other recordings. Like the album that we scrapped is all, you know, lyrics that we had taken from that album, and we still plan on, you know, using it more. But we just haven't given it justice. I don't feel like. I feel like there's a real story here that needs to be like told.
It's just that fascinating.
I mean, because I don't want to like we know who this guy is. I don't want to put him on blast or anything, you know.
No, I assumed that you wouldn't use his name in this podcast.
Wait,
this interview rather.
Not only do you not you know him now, but do you know him? Do you talk to him?
Know him? No. I mean, we know people that like we know somebody who was like engaged to him, who was an ex-coworker of Quentin's.
Damn, that's close. Also, anybody unaware, Humboldt County, it's like smaller, so it's like a county of small towns. So if you know somebody, you might know somebody from somewhere else, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I might just need to cut all of what we just said.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it gets really deep because there's all these different. I mean, a lot of people don't like. I mean, like I don't know. You might end up cutting it. I don't know. A lot of people don't like him. Like, the main thing is that, you know, people say like, oh, he's a murderer, or he's like done these fucked up things, you know, or he even talks about some things that like, I mean, I don't want to mention on here, but you know, he's just done some shit that's like, okay, that's definitely like incriminating, and we have evidence of it in this journal. Not to say that we have like evidence that I could go and prove that someone was murdered or anything like that. That's not what I'm referring to necessarily. I mean, it's more just.
Well, Christian said it's just like it's the ramblings of a madman, you know. So just like at some point you have to like just, you know, accept it for what it is, you know.
No, and it really is. It's wild stuff. Like I've personally seen this.
But I don't know. So I mean,
just the fact that it's again the whole number 17, the fascination with the letter Q, the fact that both of your names start with the letter Q.
And then a lot of the songs that we were, I mean, it just kind of so happened we started notice. I mean,
bizarre significance there.
Like some fucked up Jim Carrey movie. We're out here like noticing things that have 17 letters now, or like all of a sudden like wait a minute, like 3 or 4 of our songs from previous bands were just 17 letter phrases, you know, and all these things started popping up like Unique Opportunity.
Really?
17 letters.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's just like all these ones.
Any other examples?
13.
17.
I know, but it's just like
A lot of, or like
dude, I feel like what about like, you know, you just Quade and Quentin? Did you guys have this like idea even before that? Like you both had the same Q kind of thing going on, so like going into this, you're already looking into that kind of thing.
I mean, maybe, but
I don't know.
It could be. But
How many journals did you find?
mini, like a large cardboard box filled, so like 20 or 30.
Under what?
Like,
was it covered? Like, how did you find
okay,
it?
so me and Quentin were on a hike, and we ended up kind of wandering off trail, just following like a deer trail. And
Sorry.
Oh, no, into the
There's potion.
wandering off, finding this deer trail, and found this ammo container, and we're all just stoked. So we pick up this ammo container. We didn't even really like think to open it. We just wanted to get back up this hill, and sit down somewhere so we could check it out. And we end up realizing that it was like a geocache box. You guys are familiar with geocaching.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a geocache box, and we're like, oh shit, like this is like something that we shouldn't have took. We figured out all the information about it, and then we went and put it back. But so we went home, and we were like, oh, we didn't have any like GPS things or whatever, but we found like the site and kind of learned a little bit about it. And so we went off to find one as close to my folks' house as we could, and that ended up being exactly where they said that the geocache would be. So whoever put it there, I mean, I'm almost positive that it was the person who wrote the journals, made the geocache post saying, oh, here's a geocache, when the reality was, it was,
just journals.
he's
that
just
from
like
him.
leaving behind some sort of, part of himself. I don't know, some story. And it rained a few days later too, so I remember we went back down to check to see if anything else had blown away or if there was anything else that we were missing. And I mean, it couldn't have been anything left. So if we hadn't have found it then, it would have definitely been history. So that's what's really, I don't know.
So it's like a current like drop off. Like he dropped it off and you guys found it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It seems like it was very intentional that someone was supposed to find it.
But yeah. So that's kind of a big part of what we have going on, that we want to like bring forth more with future releases. But
I would say absolutely incorporate that in, because it's so bizarre. The phrasing is just, it's very kind of sanctimonious in its own way. It's kind of, it's almost like a religious subtext a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on some wild stuff. But as far as like taking it back to like just like the future of things right now, as far as like the music.
So what does Car Made of Glass have planned for the future?
Well, as far as like legitimate plans, like right now we have a split that's just done being mixed.
With whom?
A split with Body Ache.
Oh,
and
that's
from
right, yeah.
New Zealand, another killer band right now. Daniel, rocking it, keeping it heavy, and Christian, turned me on. Had mentioned a couple times, or had not necessarily mentioned, but had tagged them in posts about Car Made of Glass, saying, "Oh, if you like, if you fuck around with Car Made of Glass, you're gonna like Body Ache." So I ended up, getting in touch, and from there we ended up deciding to work on like a split together. And
That's so beautiful. That really just warms my core.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, he's the homie, and we're working with this East Coast label called Destructo Music. So that should be out pretty
Good
soon.
name.
Yeah, it's cool. They put out a lot of cool stuff too. And we're working on almost. I think I think it's safe to say we're done with the split right now with this Chinese band called Torturing Nurse.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around a really, really long time. I mean, they're kind of like legends in the harsh noise scene. But this, I think that will be a big.
I think you'll find a lot of listenership in the harsh noise and noise grind scene.
And what we're going with right now is like, I think that release will be the most. I think that'll wrap up the Car Made of Glass vibe into one album the most, because it isn't straying from the composition of grindcore or of like a noise grind band, but it's
Honestly, at times I'm like, wow, this still kind of reminds me of TEBOTJF. Like,
Yep.
they come from a mathcore background, so I feel like that you've brought that to this context as well. Even though it's what most would describe as noise grind or grindcore, you guys still have that mathcore background. So I still hear that in some of the songs.
Oh, yeah, and so I think it's, we're just trying to find a good way to incorporate what we feel. I mean, we're always just trying to get as heavy as possible. I mean, it's, we really want to make it something new, because we're definitely influenced by like, Blood Brothers and like Screamo, like Tower of Rome, all that old stuff, but we're definitely trying to not replicate that, but more just take the heaviness of something like Beneath the Massacre and bring that more to like a wall of sound, feeling from a band more like the Haters or I don't know. We're into a lot of different stuff.
I gotta say, it sort of opened my mind to noise a bit more. Like before this, I was very not receptive to noise at all, especially when I see videos of like that Japanese cat with just the snare drum and the microphone. I gotta say that's a bit pretentious for me, but I do appreciate what you guys are doing in terms of just integrating this with grind, using the scrap metal and the pedals, the electronics rather, to create more of a soundscape really, and as feedback is an art form, to hardcore music. I feel like if you can mosh to the beginning of a band's opening when they're just like letting feedback ring out, you can find something to appreciate in noise too. I mean, it's not you just have to look for I guess you just have to just, it's more of a passive listen, to put it a different way.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we all just come from, like, we all had our as far as the rest of Carmine Glass goes, we all kind of came from like a metal background and have kind of leached our way into noise and more experimental genres. But yeah, right now we're mostly interested in trying to bridge the two for sure.
So we can look forward to another split EP with Body Ache here in 2019, and you said a full length as well?
Yeah, we have a full length recorded already called Every Song is a Good Song.
And when can we expect that?
Hopefully within the next month or two.
Great. All right, well, Quade, thank you so much for joining us.
Y'all are awesome. Thank you
Yeah,
both
dude,
so much for having me on.
Yeah, hell yeah, this is good.
It's been a pleasure. It's a long time coming. I figured if we were ever going to actually have a guest on this podcast that wasn't, like another, I don't know, like touring musician, that it would more than likely be you.
Also somebody that like is talk about screamo.
Just a homie, someone who knows us. We can just talk with you with great effort, without any effort whatsoever. So.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Levi over here, homie. I still to this day have Hassan I Sabah in loving memory disc that you burnt me.
I have the first Great Renae Cope 7-inch.
Oh, yeah.
That was ever printed. I lent it to Quade, and I still keep the I'm sorry / thank you letter from him returning it to me saying, Levi, I'm so sorry this took so long to give back to you, but holy shit, man, this was great. Thank you so much. So like,
fuck, that's a great EP too.
Yeah,
with the pink, it's like a pink skeleton.
Yeah, so
on the front,
anybody follow Great Renae Cope? You got Splosion and you got Behold the Fuck Thunder. That EP don't exist. I got that shit.
You can't find that shit anywhere.
It's a pink vinyl 7-inch. It's amazing. It's almost like Great Renae Cope with like an element of ska. Yeah, bitches. Yeah, think about that for a second.
This, dude.